This Ableton Live 11 Lite guide will show you how to make a song using only the MPE Inside Angel Ambient and Evolving default sound. We'll begin by removing these two audio tracks. So if we right click and select delete, and we'll leave these two MIDI tracks which we will use to create our chords and our melody. The sound we're using today is called MPE Inside Angel. If we come up to the top left hand side, under categories we're under sounds, and then we're under the top folder called Ambient and Evolving. Select this small arrow, and if we look down, here's the MPE Inside Angel sound. So we'll left click that to preview the sound. You can hear the sound playing now. We can mute that by clicking on this small headphone icon and click it again to listen. So it's a strange sound. Should be quite interesting using this to make a song, if it's at all possible. So in order to load the sound, we need to attach it to a clip on a track. So if we left click, hold and drag up to this top clip on track 1, and we'll allow the sound to load. And if you see down here, the MPE Inside Angel track has loaded. We're not going to edit any of the parameters. This is just the default sound, so it's easy for you to replicate at home. So the first thing we're going to do is create our chord progression. And in this video, we're going to use the 1, 2, 5 chord progression. In particular, we're going to use a 1, 2, second inversion, first chord, 5 chord progression or turnaround that repeats. If this is all a bit confusing for you, then check out our chord progression playlist. This will help you with all the aspects of this chord progression and really improve your songwriting. So we're going to use the key of D major today. So the 1 chord will be D, the 2 chord will be E minor, and the 5 chord will be A. So let's begin by creating a MIDI track. To do this, you come up to a clip, double click. This loads the MIDI editor below. Because we've got 4 chords, we're going to use a 4-bar loop. So here under length, left click, drag up 4 bars. You can see the 4 bars here. We're using the key of D major. So you see here it says scale. We'll click on scale. Select this drop down to find D. And you can see the notes of D major are highlighted on the MIDI editor. We can preview the sound if we click on this headphone icon and then click and drag down the piano roll. You can hear that. So for our chord progression, we're going to come down an octave to D2. So if you scroll down with your mouse wheel, here's D2. That's how that sounds. We're going to have a rising chord progression so that it feels like we're moving up from D2 as the chord progression continues. Because of this strange ambient MPE Inside Angel sound, we're only going to use a single note to represent each chord in the harmony here. We'll use the lowest note in each chord to signify the whole chord that it's representing. The first chord we want is D, so we'll use the root note in D is the note D. The other notes in D, just for reference, are F sharp and A. So this will be our lowest chord note, so we'll just play it at D2 here. So if you double click, creates a default length note, which is 1/16 for us. Then when this handle comes up, when you hover over the right hand side of the note, left click and drag across, and then this is creating a D2 note for a bar of length. You can see here from bar 1 to 2, 1 bar. The second chord is the 2 chord, which is E minor. So our lowest note in E minor is E. The other 2 notes are G and B. So we just want an E note above this D note. There you go, E2. Same again, double click and drag across. For our third chord, we're using a 1 chord again, but we're using a second inversion. If you'd like some help with inversions, check out our video on major chord inversions. Basically, it means we use the same notes for the chord, but the lowest note is a different note. So you see in the first bar, we used a D chord and we used D as the lowest note. A first inversion would use the third note, which is F sharp, which is here. We're going to use a second inversion, which uses the fifth note, which is A, which is here. So we'll double click and play A. So you can see our bass notes, our chords are rising up. Now for the fourth bar, we're going to play the 5 chord, which in this case is A. And as you can see, we're already playing an A, and we're going to repeat it. We're going to carry that over. So this A note will have a different role. It will, in the third bar, it's part of the D chord. In the fourth bar, it's the root note in the A chord. And our supporting notes in the melody will make it clear that the chord has changed. So let's preview this. We can come up here. You can see the bar is full of color, so it means we've got MIDI data. Select play. Okay, very strange sounding, ethereal, but it implies the chord progression we're looking for. Let's stop that there. If this video is helping you so far, then please click like and subscribe to our channel for more Ableton guides. Okay, now we're going to create the melody. We want the melody on a separate track, so it's the same process as before to get the sound onto track 2. We come up, left click and hold on MPE Inside Angel and drag it up to the top clip on track 2. Let that load. Double click. Here's our MIDI editor again. You can see D major is already loaded. We just need to increase the length to 4 bars. So what we're going to do now is create a simple melody using the notes in the underlying chords. This is the most basic way to create a melody. If you need some help with this, check out our video on the 1-4-5 chord melody. The process is much the same as here. So our first bar was the 1 chord, the D major chord, and that has the notes D, F sharp and A. So we'll do this in a higher register than the chords. We'll start at D3 and move upwards generally. And we'll also start on the root note. It's a good place to start for a melody is a root note. Gives you a grounding for the key. So we'll double click. And you enter the notes in the same way. You double click and then you can use that handle to change the duration of a note. You can left click and move the notes around. You can also click and move the notes up and down. So what we'll do is we'll loop this melody playing as we're editing the information. Okay, so I'm just going to play around here. The first bar, we've got D, F sharp and A are the notes we can use. So let's see what we can do. We could start with an arpeggio. That's where you play the chord notes in order. The second bar is an E minor chord, so we have the notes E, G and B. Remember that the E note is already playing. The G note, or the minor third, is particularly important here to give us the feeling of the minor chord, so I want to make sure that's featuring prominently. So that's G. I think we'll start with that. And the other note I want to use here is B. So you remember for the third bar, we're going back to the 1 chord, but using the inversion. So D and F sharp aren't playing currently. It will come up to this high D. And then we need an F sharp. And then for our final bar, our fourth bar, we're going to the 5 chord, which is A. And that uses the notes A, C sharp and E. So if you remember, the A note is shared across the 1 chord and the 5 chord. So I might carry over an A note here. And then we've also got C sharp and E we can use. We'll come down to an E to finish. Before we play the whole song with the chords, I want to ask you a quick question. Have you ever created a song using a single sound? Let us know in the comments below what sound you used and what chord progression and melody you might have used. Okay, before we listen to the final song and make any last tweaks, I'm going to pan the tracks here. So these are the track pan knobs. If you left click and drag down, it will move it to the left. And if you left click and drag up, We'll move it to the right, just to give us a bit of separation between our chords or harmony and our melody or tune. Okay, so to play the whole thing, we'll come up to the master track here on the right and click play. So it's another strange ambient track using only this sound. These ambient sounds are usually only used to fill out the background of a track, sustaining a single note normally. But you can hear the tune, you can hear the chords underneath. So it's an interesting way to preview this sound and forms a beginner's guide for Ableton Live 11 Lite. Master Ableton now.